Hey, what's going on everybody? It's ETAPRIME back here again. Today we're going to be taking a look at Ayaneo's biggest, baddest handheld to date, the Ayaneo KUN. Now some of you might be familiar with this device. It was announced a while ago, but it is up on Indiegogo right now, and I've had this in my possession for the last 3 days. And this thing is fast. I mean, it's one of my favorite handhelds right now, and when it comes to the unboxing experience, this is second to none. I haven't seen any other handheld manufacturer do anything like this. In fact, I haven't reviewed a product that was packaged up this nicely in a very, very long time. We've got a real wood box here with a sliding top, Ayaneo burnt into both sides, and I know the unboxing experience isn't everything when it comes to a product, but getting this out of the packaging was very satisfying. I mean, they went all out with this. As you can see, we've got a sliding top here, and inside we've got 2 compartments. One of these is going to contain all of our accessories, the other is going to contain the handheld itself. Everything has been printed on. Inside of here, you can actually unfold this, and we've got all of our instructions. In this first compartment, it contains our charger, which is actually a 100-watt PD fast charger, USB Type-C cable, and a few extra little accessories. But the main claim to fame here is the handheld itself, and this thing is absolutely beautiful. They are offering this in 3 different color variants. They've got a white version, a black version, and I've got the silver version. Personally, I really like the silver version here, but all of them look equally as good. Now, like I mentioned, Ayaneo went all out with this, and it is absolutely beautiful. In my opinion, it's the best looking handheld on the market. Dual track pads, a 1600p 8.4-inch display, and a 75 watt-hour battery, so we can expect some really good battery life out of this. In fact, it's the largest battery in a handheld gaming PC so far. Just to put this into perspective for you, the Steam Deck and the ROG Ally have a 40 watt-hour battery. Now with this, we do get a built-in kickstand because it is quite large, and setting this up on the table with an external controller would work out really well. On the bottom here, we've got a 3.5mm audio jack and USB 4, plus our dual stereo speakers. They're downward facing. It would have been nice to have front facing, but these things sound absolutely amazing. Up top, we've got a full-size USB 3 port, another USB 4 port, volume rocker, and our fingerprint sensor / power button. This also works with face recognition, so you can log into Windows super easily if you wanted to. And of course, when it comes to the specs, we've got the AMD Ryzen 7 7840U. 8 cores, 16 threads, based on Zen 4 with a boost up to 5.1 GHz. And with this one, we can go to 5 watts to keep it real low, or up to a 54 watt TDP to kind of let this thing loose. Graphics are going to be handled by the Radeon 780M iGPU based on RDNA3, 12 CUs up to 2700 MHz. Ayaneo is offering a few different RAM and storage variants of this new handheld. You can go up to 64 gigabytes of RAM and 4 terabytes of storage. That's the one I have here. I mean, that's more than enough for a handheld. I usually have to kind of shift games around when I got a 1 terabyte handheld, but with this, I just went through and downloaded everything I could. I didn't have to worry about storage. We've got a beautiful 8.4-inch IPS display with a resolution of 2560 by 1600, 500 nits of brightness, 350 pixels per inch, 130% sRGB, and 90% DCI-P3. This screen looks absolutely amazing. It's got a 75 watt-hour battery, Hall-based joysticks and triggers. It's got those dual trackpads built in, and they're calling these Touch Tap Magic touchpads. They do have some feedback to them. We've got a little bit of that linear motor going on while we kind of scroll with them, and they work out really well. Dual 6-axis gyros and HD linear motors built in. Now taking a look around back, we've got 4 extra programmable buttons. We can program this from iSpace. Front-facing camera for Microsoft facial recognition. RGB rings around the analog sticks, plus we've got RGB behind the Ayaneo button up front, and a brand new floating 8-way D-pad from Ayaneo. Now, I do want to test this in the video. Ayaneo does make some of my favorite D-pads, and I'm a little upset they strayed away from their older one, but this does feel really nice the way it is right now. So the first thing I noticed when I picked this up was how comfortable it is to hang on to. It's definitely a larger handheld, but we've got this cradle in the back that goes right in your palms. And once you're situated with it, you can reach all of the buttons very easily. You can get to those triggers around back. You can get to the analog sticks, the shoulder buttons, and the trackpads up front. We're going to take a look at those in just a second because, when it comes to navigating Windows on a handheld, it can be a bit cumbersome, but Ayaneo has several different ways to do this. Obviously, we've got an 8.4-inch touch display, so if you want to use touch, not a problem. You can also use the built-in controller, so it'll automatically swap over to mouse mode. Left analog stick is going to work for our mouse cursor. We can use our action buttons for our left and right mouse click. But we've now got these trackpads. So I've got this set up. My right trackpad is going to be my navigation. It also has a left and a right click built into this new touchpad. And while we're using these, we do have a little bit of a vibration motor going on, so it's kind of satisfying messing around with these. But we've also got our left side touchpad. So opening up a website here, I can navigate with my right and I can kind of scroll with the left touchpad. So just heading right over to the Ayaneo website, you can see we can scroll right through. Really easy navigation with these new touchpads, and the fact that we also have that built-in touchscreen, or we can use the analog sticks, gives us several ways to navigate windows. So that's really awesome to see another handheld with these built-in touchpads. But as you can see, we've got a few extra buttons up front here, and the main one that a lot of people are going to be using is the Ayaneo button. This is going to bring us into AYASpace, and we've got the newest version of AYASpace 2.0 here. And this is going to allow us to totally customize everything on the handheld, from the RGB, the way the sticks work, the way the buttons work, our TDP, fan control. We've got a few different settings here. So we've got a AAA gaming section, we've got retro, you can also set up your own custom profile, our frame limiter, and if you just hover over these for a second, it will give you an explanation of what's going on. But the coolest thing here with this new handheld is the fact that we can actually go up to a 54 watt TDP. Now, a lot of games aren't going to use 54 watts, even at 800p, but it's nice to have this, especially for those harder to run games like Cyberpunk that can really stress out the CPU and GPU. We've also got a smart TDP or auto TDP section. So basically with this, when we enable it, we can set our desired frame limit. So if we want to go to 60 FPS with a game, it's going to take that wattage up until it can reach that, if it can, depending on the game. We've also got a built-in performance overlay, which comes in really handy for just seeing what's going on with the handheld, and there's no setup, it's ready to go. It gives us our CPU usage, battery drain, TDP, fan speed, everything like that. So with this, you really don't have to mess around with Afterburner if you don't want to. It's ready to go out of the box. Fan control, we can set it to auto or manual. You can set up your own fan curve if you want to. 100% does get pretty loud here because the cooling system is a brand new cooling system to accommodate that 54 watt TDP. But it does a great job at auto, even at those higher 30 watt, 40 watt TDPs. From the controller section, we can totally customize every button on the handheld. We can set up the dead zones for the analog sticks, for the triggers around the back. You can remap the buttons. You can set up a turbo function. You can also set up a macro if you want to. Lots of great stuff here if you're into customizing your controls. And remember, we've got those 4 extra buttons around back. From here, you can map them to whatever you'd like. I mean, just going through the list, it's a little overwhelming how much we can do with this. They call it master control. And yeah, I mean, they've definitely got everything here that we need. We can customize the RGB for the rings around the sticks. And we've also got that lit Ayaneo button. This is also fully customizable from their RGB control center. And some people, might not be into the RGB, but I think it does add a little extra. I personally love the way it looks. We can also control the brightness, and we can set it up to totally turn off at a certain time. So, if you're going to be using this during the day, you want it on, but then you lay down, you can set the time up so it will shut off automatically. So to get to that menu, you just tap the button once, but to get to AYASpace itself with the game launcher, you're going to hold it for about 2 seconds. And what this is going to do is automatically scan our default directories, find all of our games. We can customize how we want these to launch. It'll also download metadata and artwork for us, and it does this all automatically. But you can go through and set up different directories if you want to. It's just basically going to look for default directories for Xbox Game Pass, Epic Games, and Steam. We've got another view here for our game launcher and a game library. So you can actually sync your games across your devices if you're signed in through Ayaneo with different devices. Comes in really handy for retro games. And finally, we've got our main settings here for AYASpace, which is more comprehensive than the little pop-up we just took a look at. From here, we can update, we can set up different custom performance profiles, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth toggles. I mean, everything you need is here in AYASpace, and they've been doing a great job, especially with AYASpace 2.0, starting to come together really, really nicely. So the very first thing I wanted to show off were some benchmarks that I ran on this. And first up, we've got Geekbench 6, single core, 2,467. Multi, 10,949. And keep in mind, all of these benchmarks were run at 35 watts. I'm going to save 54 watt testing for another video because we might be able to unlock a lot of performance out of this machine. Moving over to some GPU benchmarks, we've got 3D Mark Night Raid, We got a 29,584, Fire Strike coming in with a strong 7,867, and finally, Time Spy with a 3,253. In fact, this is the highest Time Spy score that I've seen out of any handheld so far with the 7840U. But these are synthetic benchmarks, and now it's time to see how this thing can really game. Okay, so the first game I wanted to test was Forza Horizon 5. Right now, we're at 800p, 15 watt TDP, medium settings. We have no resolution scale going, and we can actually get an average of around 82 FPS with this at 800p. This is more than enough, and personally, I still think it looks good at 800p, but I wanted to take it up to 1200p. So here we are, 1200p, medium settings, still at 15 watts. And as you can see, it's definitely trying its hardest at 15 watts, but we've got a lot more that we can get out of this machine. So I went up to 24 watts, 1200p, medium settings, and now we can average 86 FPS. And at 24 watts, we can go up to high settings, lock this at 60, have a great time with it. But we've also got a little more resolution we can work with on this 8.4-inch display. Remember, we've got a 1600p display, so we can go up to 2560 by 1600. And I wasn't really sure how I was going to handle it at 24 watts. Of course, we can throw a little more wattage at it if we wanted to, but it did way better than I thought it would at 1600p medium settings. This is pretty amazing. And 28 watts would be really nice at 1600p with this game, but I wanted to keep that wattage low, and in my opinion, I mean, this is still very playable. So the next thing I wanted to test out was one of my favorite games, OG Skyrim, and we're at 1600p medium settings, 24 watts. This runs at 60 FPS. Now, I was really surprised by this. So 2560 by 1600, not bad at all for a handheld gaming PC. And I know this game is old, but it's still a lot of fun, especially when you install a ton of mods on it. Okay, so the very first thing I wanted to test here was the D-pad, so I figured we'd go with Street Fighter 6. We're at 18 watts, which I find is great for this game, medium settings, 1200p on the 7840U, and the D-pad feels good. It's definitely different from what I really like with a traditional D-pad. I consider this a dish style. I have missed a few of these, and I really think it's just me getting used to this D-pad. It actually feels pretty good. It's got awesome roll to it, so it's great for these fighting games, and it's really accurate. I'll have to spend a little more time with it, messing around with some platformers and some more fighting games, but so far, I actually really do like the way it feels. Lots of movement, as you can see, kind of dips right down in there, and you know, just doing those rolls, it's not an issue whatsoever with this new one they came up with. And the final game I wanted to test for this video was Cyberpunk 2077. So at 800p low settings, we can actually run this at 15 watts over 60. We got an average of 67. But right now we're at 1200p low settings, 24 watts. And this is the best performance that I've seen of the 7840U so far. I averaged 81 FPS with Cyberpunk 2077 on a handheld gaming PC. And remember, we've still got some headroom here with the wattage. We could take this up a bit more, but I'd say locking this down at 60 FPS with the way it is right now, you could have a great time with it all day long. Okay, so one of the big things here is going to be battery life. And remember, this has a 75 watt-hour battery. I've run some tests here, and I've locked the TDP using a different application. That way we don't have any kind of boost. I went at 10 watts, 15, 20, and even 54 watts, which we really can't reach that with this game. But at 15 watts, it is pulling a little more than the Steam Deck would, and I kind of suspected that. I didn't think it would be so much. Steam Deck on average at 15 watts is 26 to 27 with the brightness at 100% on the screen. We're at 29 with the brightness at 100%, 15 watts here. But again, I went through and tested at 20 watts and even 54 watts just to kind of get a base calculation of what kind of battery life we're looking at with this, the way it is right now. I did all of my testing with the screen brightness at 100%, and at a 10 watt TDP, total battery draw 21 watts. We should get around 214 minutes. This is just using simple math. This is an estimate. At a 15 watt TDP, total draw from that battery is 29. So we're looking at around 155 minutes. Taking it up to a 20 watt TDP, we're now drawing around 36 watts from the battery. We should average around 125 minutes. And at a 54 watt TDP, We had a total battery draw of around 74 watts, so that's around 60 minutes of runtime. And keep in mind, these are estimates using what we know and some simple math. Your battery life may be a bit lower than this, and I suspect they can actually get these numbers down a bit, especially at that 15 watt TDP. It's just a matter of optimizing the power settings here. Okay, so first impressions, I personally love this thing. I'm seeing some really great battery life, and there is more to come. I know that Ayaneo can kind of optimize everything going on right now. It's drawn a little more than the Steam Deck at that 15 watt TDP, and I think they can get right on par down to around 26, 27. Built-in touchpads or trackpads, whatever you want to call them, work out really well. Love this display, 8.4-inch 1600p, so we can actually take the resolution up with the older games. Ergonomics are great. It's really comfortable to play on for a long period of time, and your arms may get tired because this is a pretty heavy unit when you compare it to something like the ROG Ally, but we are working with a lot more here, especially when it comes to that battery life. We haven't seen anything like this so far, and it's really awesome to see what Ayaneo was able to do here. But that's going to wrap it up for my first look video. If you're interested in seeing anything else running on this, just let me know in the comments below. I will have a couple more coming up. We're going to do some high TDP testing, some eGPU testing, and especially some emulation. So if there's any other games you want me to throw in there, just let me know in the comments below. And if you're interested in learning a little more, I'll leave a link to the official Ayaneo website and the Indiegogo. It's actually live right now. But if you've got any questions, let me know in the comments below. And like always, thanks for watching.